If you were to solve this equation, it's actually a fairly easy equation to solve. And doing it by graphing is not your best choice, but it works. For solving this one by graphing is a good choice because it's a little bit more complicated. So let's solve this by graphing. The first thing we're going to do to solve by graphing is we're going to graph this function right here, this function 3x minus 2. I'm going to graph that. And then I'm also going to graph 6 minus x. And I'm going to find out where they are equal. That's what that's saying. So let's graph that one first. I'm going to do this one in red. So let's graph that. That graph, we start at negative 2. Okay, and we're going to go up 3 over 1, up 3 over 1. And you go down 3 over 1, and you'll kind of get this graph right there. So we graphed y equals 3x minus 2. That was our first step. My next step is to graph this one. So I'm going to graph y equals 6 minus x. So that one is, I'm going to start here at 6, and I go down 1 over 1, down 1 over 1, and you'll notice right there. So both graphs have been graphed. We graphed the blue one and the red one, and I want to know where they're equal. For what x value are they equal? And what you'll notice is right here, when x equals 2, they are equal. If you were to take 2 and plug it in here, 2 minus 3 is 6, 6 minus 2 is 4. And if you plug 2 in here, 6 minus 2 is 4. 4 equals 4. Oh, so that solved it. So when the x value, this is x, is 2, these two graphs are equal. It's an interesting way of solving. Yes, you could solve it algebraically. Very easy. You would get 2 as well. Let's try this harder problem here. For this particular harder problem, let's make our two equations. Our first equation is going to be this one. It's an absolute value graph. So their absolute value graph would look something like this. And we'll put a plus 0. So that's the first one. And then we're going to graph this, which is y equals 4. So we're going to graph those two graphs. The first one, all right, our hk is negative 2, 0. So we're negative 2, 0. So that is a point right there. And our slope is 1. So we're going to go up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1. So it looks like that. And we go up 1 over 1 the opposite direction. So we have like that. So that is the equation of the red. This is graphed there in red. Now my next one is the 4. So I'm going to graph the 4. So y equals 4, hopefully you realize, is a flat line like that. That's y equals 4. So now if the equation was this, if this was actually an equation, all right, now that's a plus, sorry. See, I made an equation. If I wanted to solve this, if for an equation, this is an inequality, but for an equation, what I would do is I would just look at the two places where it crosses, and my answer would be x equals negative 6 and 2. It crosses at negative 6 and 2. So when x is negative 6 and 2, these two are equal. If you plugged it in, that would equal 4. Plug in 2, that would equal 4. Both these values equal 4. It's a nice graphical way to solve an equation. Now when we talk about inequalities, it's a little bit more complicated. So first of all, you understand this is a less than sign. Less than means below, smaller. So what it's saying here is basically that when is the absolute value graph below the graph of y equals 4? Or when is the red graph below the green graph? For what intervals, for what values is the red below the blue? So for this interval, from this dot, is the red below the blue? No, the red is above the blue. For between these dots, oh yeah, the red is below the blue. So it's true between these two dots. Over here, no, the red is above the blue. I want when the red is below the blue. So the only place that the red graph is below the blue graph is between negative 6 and 2. And the way we write that as an answer is we write it as an interval from negative 6 to 2. Open interval, because it's just a less than. You can also write it like this. Both these are perfectly fine answers. So those are actually the answers. Again, that looks like a coordinate. It's not. It's an interval from negative 6 to 2. From that interval, this graph is below that graph. So it'll take some practice getting used to it. The key here is more important about solving. Can you find the places where the two graph and realize that that's the solution to an equation? And the inequality is a little bit more complicated than that.